Terrifying tales of cursed secrets. Discover 10 unexplained mysteries that haunt the night. Rachel McIntyre felt the air grow thicker as night began to creep into Maplewood. Twisted stories of curses and malevolent spirits wove themselves into the fabric of her seemingly perfect suburb, a place where whispers curled in the wind like smoke. As she tucked her children in for the night, she forced herself to breathe, to drown out the stories that gnawed at her sanity. But what if those tales were more than just folklore? What if the shadows of her home held darker secrets, ones that could destroy everything she loved? With a heavy heart, Rachel climbed into the cramped attic. Dust danced in the fading light, and memories of families long gone lingered like ghosts. As she rummaged through boxes, pushing aside forgotten toys and holiday decorations, her fingers grazed something cold and leather-bound. A diary, its spine cracked, revealing pages filled with sweeping letters that whispered chilling tales of loss, demise, and despair. She could feel her pulse quicken. There it was, the first sinister element. A story of a family who vanished one autumn night without a trace. No goodbyes, no sign of struggle, just a cold, empty house where chaos had once reigned. As Rachel read, every word crashed down on her like thunder, sending icy shivers down her spine. Accidents, sudden deaths, children taken in the dark, they clawed at her heart, each tale tying inexplicably to the very land she stood upon. As weeks passed, the inexplicable began to seep into her life. Neighbors, once filled with friendly smiles, now wore expressions that looked too stretched, too forced. The flickering streetlights behaved as if possessed, buzzing like angry wasps, casting strange shadows across the pavement. The neighborhood's laughter faded, replaced by unsettling quietude. Felt wrong, unnatural. Rachel couldn't shake off the sensation that eyes, malevolent and hungry, watched from the blackened windows opposite her own. Some truths are best kept hidden, Rachel, Lisa murmured one evening, her voice trembling as she grabbed Rachel's arm, her fingers cold as ice. Promise me you'll stay safe. Panic flickered in her eyes, and the warmth of their friendship felt like a fragile thread, ready to break. Rachel tried to laugh it off, but the words twisted in her stomach like a knife. And then the accidents began. A car skidded off the road, narrowly missing the children playing outside. A tree fell in the middle of the street, crushing a neighbor's car during the night. Each incident rattled the community, yet their smiles remained plastered on their faces, stretching wider in the tense air. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then, one late evening, Rachel stumbled upon an old neighbor's name in the diary, the name she trusted with her children. Panic seized her, twisting in her chest like a vice. Realization crashed down. The horror wasn't just history. It was alive, prowling her streets, camouflaged in familiarity. Looking out at the shifting silhouettes of her neighbors, dread twisted her heart. Who among them was truly hiding? Could the sanctuary she believed her home to be really be a lair of lurking dangers? Rachel shuddered as the thought settled. Would she be able to protect Mia and Max from whatever darkness was about to envelop them? As the shadows stretched long across her yard, she knew, without a doubt, she was standing on the brink of something terrible. The night pressed in like a relentless shroud, punctuated only by the sporadic buzz of the flickering streetlights outside Rachel's window. She stared into the darkness, her heart racing, scanning for any sign of danger. Shadows morphed into threatening figures, just beyond the veil of her calm suburban life. The world she once trusted had twisted into something cold and alien. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from the attic, dragging her attention. It was subtle, like the rustle of paper under the weight of an unseen hand. Grabbing a flashlight, she crept up the stairs, each step creaking beneath her feet as if betraying her stealth. She swiped the beam of light across the dusty surroundings. The air was thick with an acrid scent, a mixture of mildew and something metallic. Was it blood? The thought crashed through her mind, causing her to shudder. With hesitation, she approached the box she'd found the diary in. The lid stood ajar as if tempting her to look inside once more. She felt a jolt of apprehension as she lifted it, heart pounding louder than ever before. The contents rattled ominously, and she peered within, gasping at what lay nestled among the remnants of forgotten lives. Old photographs, their edges frayed and warped, stared back at her. The faces seemed familiar yet unsettling. Eyes that glimmered with a sinister knowledge blinked back at her from long ago. The very same people she had seen walking her street. Rachel stumbled back, reeling at the connection. Were they the lost families from the diary? She quickly shuffled through the pictures, her fingers trembling. And then her breath caught in her throat. A child, the same age as Mia, stood amongst them, face twisted in an expression of sheer terror. Tears brimmed Rachel's eyes as she dropped the photos. What had happened to that child? Did it tie to the secrets wrapped around Maplewood? The diary fell open again as a chilling wind swept through the attic, ruffling its pages. She felt the sudden urge to flee, but a morbid curiosity held her in place. She flipped to a passage marked by a careful, jagged line. The darkness seeks to reclaim what it has lost, it read. Once it finds its prey, it will stop at nothing. The words twisted in her gut as reality began to shift. Was this a warning? Were her children in danger? The world around her swayed, her vision narrowing on a flicker of movement in the corner. The flashlight beam quivered as she turned sharply, and her heart threatened to burst from her chest. A shadow, darker than night, shifted across the wall, and before she could react, it darted out the attic door, slamming it shut behind it. Panicking, Rachel scrambled for the handle, yanking it down. The door wouldn't budge. Please, she cried, pounding against the wood, desperation flaring in her chest. Let me out. Silence engulfed her, save for the faint thumping of her pulse in her ears. Had it vanished? Was it part of her encroaching insanity? Or was something much worse lurking beyond her sight? Rachel took a step back, breathing heavily. She could no longer ignore it. The darkness was drawing near, threatening to devour everyone she loved. With renewed determination, she rushed back to the diary, flipping through frantic pages until one entry made her blood turn cold. A ritual buried in the ink promised to break the cycle, the same ritual that had been conducted in this very neighborhood years ago. Could she be the one to set things right before it was too late? The answer weighed heavily upon her, and fear coiled tightly around her heart. As she held the diary, fresh terror coursed through her veins. The night still held its secrets. Was the true horror about to unveil itself, revealing the depths of a curse that would demand a price? Outside, the wind howled, echoing her dread, as something sinister pulled back the veil of quietude. Rachel's fingers trembled as she forced her eyes back to the diary. Each page whispered promises of nightmares and shadows that danced just beyond the reach of light. The room felt like it was closing in, the very walls pulsing with a rhythm that synced with her frantic heartbeat. What was that ritual? Was there a way to save Mia and Mark? She was running out of time. With panic driving her, she flipped through the pages anew, desperate for answers. Between paragraphs of grotesque horror, she caught phrases that jumped out, demanding her attention, phrases about sacrifice, about appeasing the darkness. Suddenly, a thunderous bang reverberated from below, shaking the very foundation of the house. The attic door rattled under the weight of something heavy slamming against it from the outside. "Mom!" It was Mia's voice, barely a whisper, floating up the stairs like a prayer. "Stay there. Stay in your room," Rachel shouted, her voice cracking like glass under pressure. She risked a glance down the stairwell. The shadows of the hallway stretched impossibly long, fissures of darkness crawling along the walls. Another bang, this one louder, more desperate. This time it was Mark. Her heart twisted. They were not safe, not anymore. The attic door shook violently again, splintering the silence. A gust of cold air swept through the room, snuffing out her flashlight's beam, plunging her into total darkness. Rachel's breath hitched. She felt it, the undeniable presence lurking just beyond her vision. Reaching for her, searching. Instinct kicked in. With no light to guide her, she fumbled blindly toward the attic window, hoping against hope that breaking glass would bring her release. She could hear the muffled calls of her children, the terror clawing at their voices wrapping around her like barbed wire, before her hands even made contact with the frame. A cold hand clamped around her wrist, not a grip of comfort but one of grave foreboding, freezing her in place. Rachel gasped, the icy constriction of fear coursing through her veins as she whipped around. There, impossibly close, was the shadow again. A swirling mass of darkness that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Its whispers filled the room, chilling and serrated. "You cannot escape, you belong to me now." A visceral urge to scream overwhelmed her. Rachel jerked away, breaking free from the icy grip, shoving her way through the clutter to the attic door. She pounded on it, tears blurring her vision. She could feel the air charging, thickening as whatever demon lurked there toyed with her. Would it just let her children go? "Mia! Mark!" she shouted, her voice raw, desperation clawing at her throat. If only she could get them, get out, find a way to break this curse, this cycle of horror that had gripped her family. The shadow slithered towards her, whispering promises of despair. "The darkness is patient, it will wait for you to surrender." Rachel felt something deep within her snap. She would not surrender. Not now. With a fierce determination, she turned back to the diary. Somehow she could feel it, the air hanging heavy with a solution. A whisper of hope glimmered amidst the dread. But she felt a shudder. What would she have to sacrifice to break the cycle? As dread coiled tighter, the attic door suddenly swung open, sending a burst of frozen air swirling through the room. "Mom!" Light flooded in, and in an instant, she was plunged back into the world of shadows and whispers, the weight of her final choice pulsing behind her heart. But what if the greater threat lay in the choices that still awaited her? Silently, unseen eyes watched from the darkness beyond, waiting for the moment when Rachel would seal their fate. The moment light spilled into the attic, Rachel blinked against the brightness, her heart racing in the aftermath of panic. Mia and Mark stood framed in the doorway, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. "Mom, what's going on?" Mia pleaded, stepping hesitantly inside. Rachel swung the door wide, pulling her children close, her body rigid with a protective instinct. "You need to stay close. Don't move," she instructed, her voice barely a whisper. Even the air felt tremorous with dread. Mark's eyes darted around the cluttered space, taking in the scribbled diary that lay open on the floor. "What is that? Are we in danger?" Before Rachel could respond, the shadow flickered at the edges of the light, seething with impatience. Its whispers grew louder, intertwining with the pale beams illuminating the attic. "They are here now, all will be lost." Mark yelled, clutching Mia's arm. Cold sweat trickled down Rachel's back as she glanced at the shadow. It hovered, amalgamating with the darkened corners of the room, an entity of searing malice. The diary. It was their only weapon. Rachel knelt and yanked it from the floor, her fingers shaking as she scanned the incomprehensible symbols and lines. "There has to be something here. Something that can help us." Mark's breaths quickened, his voice rising into a panic. "We can't stay here. We need to leave." "No," Rachel snapped, the desperation shaping her words. "We can't just run. It won't let us." A sudden rush of wind knocked them back into a pile of boxes, scattering them across the floor. The shadow bulged, twisting into grotesque shapes, the air thick and suffocating. Each breath turned burning in her lungs. Mia cried again, her blue eyes wide with terror. The shadow surged, its whispers reverberating off the walls. "Your time is limited, one will be chosen." Rachel's heart plummeted. Chosen? What kind of sick game was this? "Stay together," she shouted, inching toward a flickering candle on the sill. The shadow responded, shrieking in anger as it charged forth. "Foolish woman!" A searing pain gripped Rachel's chest as she caught another glimpse of the shadow's form. Dark tendrils lashed out, wrapping around her wrists, pulling her toward whatever twisted fate beckoned her. Panic surged. She couldn't let this happen, not to herself, and especially not to her children. But as the darkness drew closer, a clarity struck her like a lightning bolt. The diary. Amid the chaos, it throbbed with energy. She opened it up wide, heart racing with revelation and dread. She pointed to a passage, reading aloud, "When the souls are bound, sacrifice begets salvation." "What does that mean?" Mia asked, clinging to Rachel as if her life depended on it. Without thinking, Rachel hurled the diary at the dark mass. It struck the shadow, lighting it up like fireworks, illuminating the devastation behind it. The darkness writhed, shrieking with indignation. "You think you can defy me?" Rachel felt sweat dripping down her back. "We need to make a choice." Mark shook his head, fear seeping into every pore. "What choice?" Time was slipping away. "Whatever it takes," Rachel screamed, her eyes locked onto the swirling shadow, unsure of what would happen next. Would they sacrifice the unthinkable? A guttural laugh erupted. "You will see what needs to be paid." Just then, a cracking noise reverberated through the rafters. The light above flickered as something unseen trembled the very foundation of the attic. Rachel's heart dropped as she stepped forward, fueled by raw determination. But what lurked at the apex of that darkness? Would the price of their safety come from an unimaginable cost? The diary began to hum, vibrating with raw, unyielding energy as the shadow leered, waiting for Rachel to commit to the haunted choices that lay ahead. As the hum grew louder, it resonated through Rachel's bones, drowning out the frantic heartbeats of her children. The attic felt alive, a cage of shadows and whispers, each corner curling with secrets that begged to be unearthed. The diary, brightened by its strange glow, began shifting in her hands. She glanced back at Mark and Mia, their faces pale, wide-eyed with panic and confusion. "Don't let go of each other," Rachel shouted, tightening her grip on the diary. The shadows twisted and pulsed, their shrieks morphing into a cacophony of despair. The air thickened, wrapping around Rachel like a noose, suffocating and oppressive. Just then, the candle flickered violently, casting shadows that leapt and danced across the attic walls. They formed grotesque faces, frozen in fear, mouths agape, as if caught in a silent scream. Each flicker sent another wave of dread crashing into Rachel. She was losing her grip on reality, and as the darkness encroached closer, every instinct screamed that time was drawing thin. "Mom, what are we going to do?" Mark's voice trembled, breaking through her chaotic thoughts. Rachel could see his jaw clench, his little hands balled into fists, trying hard to hold onto his courage. "We have to make a choice," Rachel repeated, each word strained as she fought against the tightening grip of the shadow. "Sacrifice begets salvation. What does that even mean?" Mia whimpered, her voice quaking as she latched onto Rachel's side, trembling in fear. Rachel didn't answer. Her mind raced, deciphering the meaning of those ominous words. It was about them. They weren't just a family. They were a tether to the light, fighting to keep the darkness at bay. But someone would have to become the offering, the link that would either break the bond or strengthen it. The shadow, agitated, began to pulse in time with her thoughts, as if feeding off her struggle. "Choose, choose," it taunted, its voice a swirling mass of malice. The candles on the windowsill flickered, the light dimming as if the very essence of daylight were being sucked away. "Mia," Rachel gasped out, heart racing. "We have to do this together. We can't let it win." The shadow surged, lashing out with renewed fury, the cold tendrils sharply biting into Rachel's skin, searing her like icy fire. It wanted her fear, wanted their division. "One must be given. We can't do this," Mark shouted suddenly, breaking down. "I won't let it take you, Mom." Rachel felt his spirit begin to falter, the thread of bravery he clung to unraveling. "Stop," she commanded fiercely, willing strength into her voice. "Look at the diary. Look." She thrust the book closer in desperation as she lifted it. A wave of energy burst forth, illuminating the room like a spotlight, pushing back the shadows momentarily. The adhesive force that held the attic captive began to tremble, faltering before their eyes. But the shadow was relentless. It let out an anguished wail, a grasping sound that echoed like a death knell in their ears. In that moment, Rachel felt her body weaken under its pressure. The diary's revelations were sharp in her mind. Had they simply misread it? What if sacrifice wasn't what would save them? What if it spelled doom? A chilling realization gripped her. Could they break free without one of them paying the ultimate price? Together, Rachel shouted on the count of 3. She looked at Mia and Mark, who glanced back at her, fear and trust mingling in their expressions. She couldn't let them see her falter. 1, 2. The terror in the room pulsed, growing heavier, the shadows coiling tighter. The entity hungered, its whispers vibrating in discordant harmony. 3. As they shouted the word, the attic was plunged into darkness again. The shadow twisted, reaching for them with renewed vigor, and all hope seemed lost. Would they be consumed? Or could they turn the tide? The diary spat sparks of light, illuminating their frantic faces one last time. The energy leaped from the pages, sending a jolt through Rachel's body as the choice loomed. Then silence settled over the room, heavy and thick, broken only by the sound of Rachel's breath as the darkness closed in around them, leaving one question teetering on the edge of despair. Who would be willing to make the sacrifice, and for what? The darkness swallowed them whole, wrapping around their bodies like a shroud. Every breath Rachel took felt heavy and strained, the air thick with despair as if it, too, was afraid. The shrieks from the shadow were gone, replaced by a deafening silence. It was a stillness that pierced Rachel deeper than the cold tendrils had ever reached. Instinctively, she gripped Mark and Mia tighter, their bodies trembling against hers. Panic swelled inside her, coursing through her veins like ice. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice cracking. She could feel their small hearts racing, could almost hear the frantic rhythm thundering against the eerie quiet. "Mom?" Mark's voice trembled in the dark, a fragile sound that held the weight of their fear. Is it gone?" Rachel opened her mouth to reply, but the words snagged in her throat. What if it had simply retreated, lying in wait? What if it was preparing for the next assault? Suddenly, without warning, a beam of light burst forth from the diary, illuminating the attic in a spectral glow. The shadows danced and twisted in the glow, revealing nightmarish shapes that writhed in agony. Rachel's heart raced as she saw them, faces she recognized, their eyes hollow and mouths frozen in silent screams. Friends, neighbors, people who had vanished without a trace. "Mom, look!" Mia pointed, her small voice shrill with terror. Rachel followed her finger, her breath catching in her throat. The wall was alive, a mural of lost souls captured by the shadows of the attic. They were trapped in an endless cycle of fear, pleading silently for release. What do we do?" Mark asked, his voice quaking as he clutched his sister's arm, squeezing so tightly Rachel thought he might break something. She struggled to breathe, panic clawing at her throat. "Hold on to the diary," Rachel commanded, grabbing it off the floor where it had fallen. It felt warm in her hands, alive with a pulse that reverberated against her skin. "We have to use it. It has to have the answer." But as she cast her gaze around the attic, the warmth from the diary began to chill. A sense of dread weighed on her. The old oak beams creaked under unseen pressure, and a deep rumbling emanated from within the very walls, as if the house itself was alive, awakening with fury. "Make the choice now or you will pay," a voice whispered, threading through the air like smoke. It was everywhere and nowhere at once, an echo that reverberated inside her skull. "No, we won tea," Rachel shouted defiantly, but the shiver of panic that swept through her made her doubt her own words. It felt like an echo left for the dead. The attic began shaking violently. Dust rained down, particles swirling in the ghostly light as the shadows surged once more, eager to devour their prey. Rachel's grip on the diary tightened. Sacrifice still lingered at the back of her mind. What if they didn't have to lose one of their own? What if there was another way? "Focus," Rachel shouted above the din. "Mia, Mark, Grab the diary. We have to channel its power together. They huddled around the book, the energy pulsating hotter in their hands. But the shadows were drawing closer, stretching out their grasping limbs. The encroaching figures distorted, closing in like a vice, mingling with the horrified faces on the wall, their mouths opening wider, as if ready to swallow them whole. "Close your eyes," Rachel commanded, but the shadows offered such a pull. Each heartbeat sounded like a countdown. "Do we really have to sacrifice someone?" Mark's whisper penetrated the thick tension, words heavy with desperation. "Can't we just know?" Rachel shouted, her heart desperate for something other than despair. "We can't let them take any of us. We'll fight." Suddenly, the air split with an unearthly howl, shaking the fabric of reality. The monstrous shadows lunged, a wave of darkness crashing against them like a raging storm. Rachel fought against the encroaching tide, but its chill seeped through her, whispering vile promises. One must be given then. A flicker of hope ignited within her. She glanced down at the diary, its pages fluttering wildly, illuminating not just fear but defiance. Could it be their salvation? The shadow surged again, hungry. Rachel squared her shoulders, courage swelling in her chest. "We're not afraid of you," she screamed, allowing the raw energy of determination to guide her hands. She would find a way out. But just as she opened the diary to read the next line, the world around them expanded, the darkness coiling tighter, enveloping them in its ominous embrace. What would they be willing to do when faced with the choice? Fight or surrender? The air thickened with anticipation. Would their unity outlast the malignant force that sought to tear them apart? The breath left her lungs as the shadows writhed closer. Could they face the ultimate decision lurking just out of reach? The shadows coiled tighter, pressing against Rachel and her children like a living entity. The diary pulsed in her grip, a warm beacon in a sea of cold malevolence. "We need to focus," she yelled, but her own voice trembled, unraveling her courage with each syllable. With a swift intake of breath, she forced herself to remember the ink scrawled on the pages that had drawn her to this forsaken place. "We can unleash its power. We can fight this." She flipped the book open toward the glowing light, desperately scanning for the passage that might lend them strength. The whispers intensified, an overwhelming cacophony of voices merging into a dreadful symphony. Give one," they chorused, the shadows stretching like skeletal hands to caress their faces, chilling her to the bone. Mark whimpered, clutching Mia tighter, the fear in his eyes tearing at Rachel's heart. "Listen to me," Rachel cried, each word laced with urgency. "We have to confront what's in here. There's a way." She didn't believe her own words. It felt like a gamble, one that might cost them their lives. But to surrender felt worse. Outside the confines of the attic, a rogue wind howled, rattling the window panes like ghostly hands searching for entry. Chilling air seared through the cracks, drawing the heavy shadows inward, as they seemed to hesitate for just a moment. The flickering light from the diary dimmed, its vibrancy waning under the weight of despair. "Find the truth," the whispered voice echoed again, weaving through the very fibers of her consciousness, entwining with her thoughts. "What did you bring to this place? What sacrifice are you willing to make?" Her heart dropped. The answer slithered in the back of her mind, an ugly truth she hadn't dared to face. "The house," Rachel murmured, almost to herself. "The house took our mother," and before she could finish, Mark chimed in, the color draining from his face. "Mom, no. I want to let you know," Rachel interjected, shaking her head vehemently. "I would never. We will not extend their grip by giving them what they want." The shadows squirmed in frustration, a monstrous energy crackling around them. "Then what, Mom?" Mia asked, her voice small but steady. "What do we do?" In that moment of clarity, an idea flickered to life, the glow of hope piercing the darkness, at least for now. "We fight, with all of us together." The warmth from the diary surged back, filling the attic with a golden radiance, pushing back against the encroaching shadows. "As you wish," the darkness hissed mockingly, closing in once more. "Your rebellion will be your end." The shadows swept forward with a violent rush, an amorphous wave intent on enveloping them. Rachel, squaring her shoulders, shouted, "Open your hearts. Let it in." She urged them both, gripping their hands tightly, guiding them to do the same with the diary. They each closed their eyes, summoning all the memories of love and laughter, their father's voice, their mother's comforting embrace. "We aren't afraid of you," Rachel bellowed, her voice mingling with the chaotic whispers. "You have no power here." The attic trembled violently, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing. They were weightless, floating amidst the chaos, the diary glowing fiercely in their palms. Celestial energy surged around them, buoying their spirits against the darkness. The hands of shadow twisted and recoiled, howling in frustration. Suddenly, the attic split with a blinding light, and Rachel felt a jolt as if the ground had vanished beneath them. But just as quickly, reality slammed back into place. They landed hard, a tangle of limbs and scattered energy. The diary lay open beside them, pulsating erratically. And then, an inescapable dread filled the air, chilling Rachel to her core. The screams of the lost souls echoed around them. Sacrifice remains, choices abound. The voices grew louder, forming a mantra of confusion. Rachel gasped. Was the house crying out for something more than just their fear? She peered into the shadows, searching for hint of clarity or understanding. The shadows writhed once more, their edges sharp and hungry, as a familiar face flickered into view among them. It was her mother, eyes filled with longing and despair. "Mom!" Rachel shouted, lunging forward, but the darkness pulled her back, snatching her grip away. She struggled against the voices, battling the rising tide of despair clawing at her sanity. In that breath-stealing moment, the diary fell into silence. The glow faded, its heart-wrenching pulsing now still. Their fate hung in balance, as shadows surged with insatiable hunger. Would they uncover the truth that could release them all, or would they be bound to the darkness forever? The attic shuddered, the shadows closing in. Rachel felt the fight slipping. What truly lay at the heart of this cursed place had yet to be revealed. The air thickened with an oppressive force, making it hard for Rachel to breathe. Despair clawed at her throat. The familiar face of her mother sank deeper into the darkness, a cruel reminder of the horrors cloaked within this cursed attic. "Mom!" Rachel gasped again, desperation pushing her forward, but the shadows snatched her, dragging her back into their cold embrace. Panic surged within her chest, tightening like a vice. Mark's small hands trembled as he gripped Mia, his wide eyes reflecting the chaos swirling around them. "What do we do? Mom, please!" His voice cracked, straining against the oppressive whispers. Rachel forced herself to focus on the diary, now just a dim heartbeat in the dark. But the words caught in her throat. The shadows were not just surrounding them. They were in her mind, each whisper a thousand dread-filled thoughts. "We need to remember." "Remember what?" Mia squeezed Rachel's hand, her voice desperate but steady. "Remember who we are. We're stronger than this." Rachel shouted, disbelief coursing through her. Could faith alone repel this dark tide? But it was all she had. Think of the good times, the birthdays, family dinners. Remember our love. It can fight this. Suddenly, the attic walls pulsed around them, the whispers syncopating into a horrific tuned sadness, anger, betrayal. Yet, in that twisted melody, Rachel sensed a rhythm, a tempo skipping through the sorrow. "Hold on to each other," she cried. As Mia and Mark clung to her, she pulled them in tight, feeling their warmth against the cold terror. "Close your eyes," she ordered, feeling a tremor shoot through the floor beneath their feet. "Think of something bright, something that fills you with hope." As Mark squeezed his eyes shut, a memory flickered into Rachel's mind, their last family outing before everything fell apart. It was a perfect day, sunlight dancing on the lake's surface. Laughter bubbled like a brook, bubbling over surfaces long frozen. "Mom, I remember," Mark cried out, his voice echoing through the shadowy air. "The park, the lake." "Yes," Rachel roared, buoyed by their collective strength. "Bring it back. Bring back the light." She could feel the shadows tighten, their grip weakening as the memories radiated warmth. It was raw, a beam cutting through the dark, a defiance born from love. The diary vibrated violently, igniting with a surge of energy that beckoned to break free. But the moment held a bitter edge. A sinister laugh echoed through the attic, reverberating off the walls like a thunderclap. Foolish mortals, your memories are no armor against the abyss. You wish to summon the light? It will guide you only to the truth of your own failures. Rachel stilled, a cold wave splashing over her resolve. Each word felt like a dagger, each syllable a reminder of the past they had desperately tried to escape. No, we are here, together. I will not let you take us. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, curling and twisting as the air crackled. They were taking form, the long-forgotten faces of the tormentors, hungry for her despair, her weakness. Rachel's heart raced, every pulse echoing the dread settling in her gut. "Mom," Mia whispered. Her eyes were locked on the figures materializing, fear gripping her. "What do you want from us?" Rachel shouted into the darkness, stubbornness battling fear. And for a split second, silence fell over the attic. A figure stepped forward, eyes glowing with phosphorescent blue, the slithering voice harsh and gritty. "What do we want? The cycle continues, and you are yet another opportunity." Terror pooled as reality shifted again. The very bones of the house trembled, shrieks from deep within the walls swelling to a deafening roar. "You must choose. Will you sacrifice your love for freedom?" Rachel felt the weight of the question. Sacrifice, what would that mean? Around them, shadows leaned in, waiting. Would she barter her heart for their safety? Would Mark and Mia pay the cost for their mother's escape? The heat of her decision clashed with the icy breath of the darkness. Above their heads, the attic creaked ominously. The walls were closing in, and the last remnants of warmth vanished. "Make your choice," the voice hissed, waiting to ensnare them fully as time stretched in fearful uncertainty. Rachel's heart raced. What would she do to save her children? Would she finally understand the true price of love? "Mom!" Mia's urgent voice broke through the encroaching shadows. And then a thought, an image of light flickering in the recesses of her mind. Nothing mattered more than her children, but at what cost? As the darkness swirled closer, Rachel realized the choice was upon her. Would she sacrifice all they had for an uncertain escape? The weight of dread whispered answers she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. But one thing swirled in her mind. She would need to delve deeper, confront the very curse within herself before the shadows consumed them all. And then, the attic shook, trembling under the weight of their unsaid truths, as a quiet voice murmured, "Prepare to lose what you love most or face the darkness with your souls intact." The silence was agonizing. Rachel, heart racing, felt the shadows pulse with their taunts, whispering secrets of despair. Could she sacrifice what she loved most? The weight of the decision crushed her, making it hard to think straight. Every breath came quick and shallow. "Choose," the figure sneered, its eyes glinting like shards of ice. "Love for freedom, or freedom for love?" The shadows flickered, threatening to engulf them. "Mom!" Mia's voice trembled, heavy with dread. Rachel turned, finding Mia's eyes wide with fear. Little Mark clutched her hand, a lifeline in this storm of anguish. "Whatever it is, we face it together," Rachel urged, even as doubt gnawed at her resolve. But the darkness was no mere backdrop. It surged with intent, ready to plunge deeper into their minds. Rachel chuckled bitterly. "You think you can break us with words? We are stronger than you realize." The figure leaned in closer, eyes flickering. "Stronger? Look within, your memories are your shackles. Love binds you, holds you tight. Just let go, just let go." Mia began to pull away, fear twisting her face. "Mom, what if no?" Rachel cried, clenching her fists. "We cannot give in. Every moment we've shared, every laugh, it's a light that can't be snuffed out." As she spoke, she felt the warmth of their shared memories embolden her. She could almost see the sun reflecting off the lake again, hear laughter bouncing around them, but the thrill was short-lived. The shadows twisted, weaving those memories into mockeries of their joy. Each image twisted into grotesque forms, showcasing despair. Such sweet irony. The voice crooned. Every syllable dripped with malice. You think your love can save you, yet it is your love that will destroy you. Rachel's mind raced, the shadows closing in, creeping onto her skin like ice. What do you mean? You fear losing your children more than anything, don't you? Everything you've done has been in their name. But what if you let me show you? What if you could save them by giving them up? No, Rachel shouted, forcing the words through gritted teeth. No matter the cost, I would choose them 1,000 times. Then let us see the truth unveiled. With a sudden jolt. The attic transformed. The shadows snaked away, revealing a world painted in shades of gray, a twisted version of their home. The laughter turned to chilling echoes. The lake transformed into a dark, roiling mass of water. Floating there, Rachel saw glimmering faces, visions of her family twisted in torment, forgotten remnants of her past. Look closely. These are the answers you seek, the figure beckoned. Rachel stumbled forward, horrified. There were memories she had buried, arguments, mistakes, failures. Each blurred moment etched into the faces of her children. Their joy now washed out by pools of regret. Mom, I don't like this. Mark whimpered, clutching his sister. Mom, make it stop. As they pressed against her, Rachel fought against the memories threatening to drown her. These are not our truths. They do not define us. But the shadowy realm felt palpable, every whisper echoing her faults, pulling at her heartstrings. Our love has always been messy, but it's real. It's ours. Is that so? The figure taunted, slowly swirling around them. Then bear witness to what love can manifest. In a blink, the visions shifted. Each memory sparked with dread, morphing to form various paths Rachel never wanted to consider. Every misstep echoed painfully as paths diverged, spirals of fate speaking of different realities. Stop it, Rachel screamed, clutching her chest, as the air thickened with memories of despair. Please don't take them from me. But the figure only laughed, repeating, will you sacrifice them to save yourself? Or become shackled to your love? The ground trembled beneath them, darkness brewing with an unquiet hunger. Rachel felt her resolve slip as shadows danced around them, whispering doubts, echoing the fears she tried so hard to ignore. In the distance, a glimmer of hope fought against the darkness, a flicker of light among the looming shadows. No, Rachel shouted. I will not choose between love and freedom. I will fight for both. As she pushed forward, the figure narrowed, eyes flashing with fury. A choice neither can be yours, mortal. Moments stretched painfully as time hung in uncertainty, tightening like a noose. The walls shook, and shadows twisted in erratic chaos. Just as Rachel was about to speak again, the attic screeched, warping around them. Make your choice. And as the ominous laughter echoed fiercely in their ears, Rachel felt the walls of terror close in. The final darkness stirred, waiting to break through. Would Rachel find the strength to save her family? Or would the shadows seize their final victory? A sudden scream pierced through. It was not just Rachel's. In that single, piercing cry, the weight of the curse morphed into something tangible. The attic heaved under the strain, shadows clashing against the light, as Rachel's heart thundered in her chest. She spun around, wide-eyed and desperate, clutching Mia and Mark, their fragile warmth grounding her against the encroaching dark. Mia's scream echoed, fear wrapping around her words like chains. Please. The shadows pulsed in time with Rachel's racing heartbeat, craving her despair, coaxing her to succumb. No, Rachel roared, her voice fierce enough to shake the looming terror. We will not let you win. You don't own us. Air surged in her lungs, ignited by raw determination. The flickers of her past gave way to a blazing fire of unity. Together they had weathered storms, endured heartaches. They were not just a collection of memories, they were a family. Mark, Mia, she called, fighting the darkness swirling against her. We're stronger together. We need to remember who we are. They joined hands, fingers locking around the diary. The warmth surged, radiated out, pushing back against the cold fingers of despair creeping close. Think, what do you love most? Remember why we're here. As she spoke, visions struck her mind like shooting stars' laughter. The smell of fresh cookies, the soft lullabies sung to calm tears. The memories were alive. They were hoped that in unison. Mark and Mia squeezed tighter, their small voices rising as one. We love each other. I will fight for you. We are connected. You can't take them. Rachel screamed to the shadows, fury fueling her. You underestimate our love. The darkness recoiled, shifting violently, suffocating and relentless. Its voice crawled through their minds, slick and oily. You cannot exist without sacrifice. One must be given. But I refuse to choose between love and freedom. Rachel responded, feeling an empowered surge. She flung the diary open, its pages thrumming with energy. This is our truth. She emphasized each word like a battle cry. The attic quaked, faces materializing amongst the shadows, a tapestry of despair and lost souls intertwining with her own truth. Rachel pushed her feelings further, digging into every scar, every joy, and every tear, turning them into strength. We are our own destiny. Our love is our armor. The light pulsed, brighter and fiercer, casting the shadows back into the corners of the attic. With every heartbeat, it surged forward, unraveling the darkness that clung to them like a leech. Rachel felt the shackles breaking, memories infusing them with strength, glowing like embers. Together, now, she shouted as the energy swirled around them, crackling against the looming threat. The shadows trembled, forcing their dark forms to twist and flinch against the penetrate light. We choose our path. The terrifying wails echoed through the attic as the glow enveloped them, igniting memories like fireflies illuminating the night. Laughter mingled with shouts, joy rained down, pulling the shadows apart like melting wax. No! The dark figure shrieked as the power of love raged before it, sickly desires tearing at its essence. It flailed wildly, its shadows distorting in chaotic desperation. But Rachel refused to waver. Let us go. We need no sacrifice. She bellowed with renewed strength, her voice echoing with a fierce challenge. We claim our freedom. As they joined together, a resounding force exuded from them, electric, alive, shattering the chains binding them to the curse that had held Maplewood captive for decades. With a brilliant flash, the darkness imploded, shrieking in agony as radiant light consumed the remnants of its existence. Rachel released a breath she didn't know she was holding, stepping back into the warmth of unity as the room illuminated. The attic settled, its shadows unwinding, revealing the splendor of dawn spilling through the windows. Birds chirped outside, the air now fragrant with new hopes. We did it, Mia whispered, eyes wide with wonder, her innocence shining through the darkness that had once threatened to consume them. Mark smiled, pulling Mia into a hug. We're safe. Rachel, tears swimming in her eyes, held them tight. Yes. Together we broke the cycle. This was never just about the shadows. It was about us. As she gazed around the attic, she realized that memories held power, not as bonds, but as lights that guided them forward, whispering promises of strength. The diary lay still, its dark secrets now unbound. They would write a new story as the morning sun lit Maplewood. Rachel knew the curse of the past no longer held power. The bonds of love were stronger than any darkness could ever shroud in that quiet moment of healing. A new chapter began, unexplained mysteries scattered like petals in the breeze, but undeniable hope glowing fiercely in their chests. You need to subscribe now to join us for more exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.